everyone. Welcome to today's Feather webinar. I'm joined by the wonderful Caleb Dansby and Naomi James, and we're going to be talking all about how Caleb from Christian Relief Fund ran end-of-year fundraising campaigns last year and brought in more than $107,000 with the help of Naomi, a Feather team member who was able to help him run all the campaigns and strategize and make sure everything was super successful. So really excited to have both of you on here today. We'll get into some intros in a couple of minutes, but I just want to get everyone, give everyone a minute to join here. So go ahead and drop in where you're joining from in the chat so we can kind of get the chat popping off. And I'm from Gainesville, Florida, which is actually where Feathr is headquartered. And Caleb, I know you're in Texas. Naomi, I don't actually know where you live in Gainesville, right? Okay,
Austin.
yeah. I see you around a lot, but I was like, I don't know. I feel like I see people at Feather people, but then it turns out they live somewhere else in Florida. So love a local. Okay, cool. We've got some, oh, Gainesville, Florida. Cool, cool, cool. Got some Florida people, Pennsylvania. Love to see it. Originally from Gainesville. Okay, we've got a lot of Gainesville people in this crowd. Bozeman, Montana. I have a couple friends who are currently in Montana on vacation, and it looks beautiful. So it's definitely on my bucket list. Cool. Alrighty. Well, thanks for getting the chat going. Love to just get a little bit of chatter in there already. So for anyone who's just trickled in, we're going to be talking today about how Christian Relief Fund raised more than $107,000 last giving season, so last end of year. So let's get into a couple things. So just real quick, we will be recording this and we'll be sending out the slide deck and the recording tomorrow. So you can see that in your email inbox tomorrow morning. And for anyone who's new to Feathr, not familiar, Feathr is the digital marketing platform for nonprofits. So as you can see here, we have a variety of different nonprofits, 501(c)(3)s that we serve. And so hopefully one of these logos kind of resonates with you. But we serve, human services orgs, animal services, food banks, faith-based organizations, arts and culture. So kind of runs the gamut. But yeah, and then just a couple of slides here. So I wanted to just kind of talk about, how Feathr helps you grow, whatever that means for you. So growth can mean more awareness. This local YMCA Metro Fort Worth, which I think is also a client of your, no, client of Kelsey's, I think, right? Naomi? I'm getting it all confused. Kelsey's joining me for a webinar next week, so tune in for that for sure. But this local YMCA was able to bring in a ton of new potential donors, program participants by running targeted digital ads. Palmetto Community Care is an HIV and AIDS health services organization based out of South Carolina, and they were able to drive a bunch of ticket sales for their annual fundraising event, as well as promote their health services locally through digital ads, email campaigns, all that good stuff. And then the wonderful CRF. So obviously we're joined today by Caleb from CRF, and this is the case study that we will be talking through today. So amazing results here. And then real quick, I'm going to launch a little poll before we dive into the content. We send out a weekly newsletter on Wednesday mornings called the Good Marketing Brief, and this is full of helpful content, events, webinars like this one and others, as well as just a ton of information about what's going on in the nonprofit world. So if you would like me to just go ahead and subscribe you to this, put a yes in the poll, and you don't have to click or do anything. I will get you signed up and you'll start receiving these next Wednesday. So cool. We've got a lot of yeses coming in and a lot of people already subscribed. So I'll keep that up just for a few minutes, but keep dropping answers in. And okay, so some quick intros. I'm Isa Hasty, Senior Content Marketing Manager here at Feathr. I dropped my email in here, so when you receive the slide deck, always feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions about the webinar or if you have any topics you'd like me to cover in the future, anything like that. I'm all ears. So I want to move on to a couple intros from you guys. So go ahead and just tell everyone a little bit about what you do at Christian Relief Fund, Caleb, and sort of how you ended up there.
Hello, everyone. I am Caleb Dansby. I live in Amarillo, Texas. We're about in the middle of nowhere. So if you're ever driving through Texas and want to stop in Amarillo, I'd love to meet you and grab a cup of coffee. But I joined Christian Relief Fund almost 4 years ago. I came out of college, didn't really know what I was looking to do. I knew I wanted to do something in marketing, but also in nonprofit ministry. And so luckily, I knew people who knew people, and the president of our organization called me to come in to kind of bring a new, fresh ideas to Christian Relief Fund. We've been around for 50, try to do math, 53 years, 54 years. And so a lot of the ideas and patterns of what we've done has been very traditional, and we can talk about that a lot more later. But at Christian Relief Fund, I tell people stories from the field to all of our donors, and to drive donations to help children and communities around the world. We work in about 15 to 20 different countries, ranging from Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador, Kenya, Liberia, Uganda, Romania, Ukraine, India, uh, and that's just a small summation of the list we work in. And we primarily do child sponsorship, so delivering um, support and help to kids across the world with education, food, nutrition, water, and medical needs, and just to help kids grow up to break the cycle of poverty. And then our second primary avenue of helping people is giving clean water. And this last year, we have been able to give 1.7, pushing 1.8 million people clean water in just about 12 to 14 years. And since I've been here, when I joined, we were at just about serving 600,000 people. So we have, in 3 to 4 years, we've helped a million more people in that time with clean water. So that's a little bit about CRF and what my role is in spreading the stories from all of what we do.
Yeah, that's amazing progress in the last few years. And I know we'll get a little bit into sort of the street cred, like the door-to-door kind of like mouth, word of mouth stuff that you do in addition to the digital stuff. I know that's plays a huge role in being able to connect with people. So we'll get into that a little bit, but go ahead and give Naomi a chance to introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Naomi James. I am a digital campaign strategist and a project manager at Feathr. I've been here about 2 years. I'm on the campaign managed services team. So um, we were talking about earlier about how to explain this to friends and family because it's a little nuanced, but essentially, all of our organizations that work with Feathr purchase the software, the license to the software, and then they can additionally purchase campaign managed services, which is like access to a super user strategist like me. And so what I love most about my job is with my 40 plus nonprofits that I work with, just getting to know what their goals are, what they've done before, and where they want to go, and then helping fill those holes with Feathr as a tool, as a service, and then just providing them that support, that data feedback. Is it doing what we wanted it to do, or should we pivot? That sort of thing. So I really love assisting nonprofits and helping them tell their story.
Awesome. Thanks. And then let's see. Okay. Not there yet. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing this screen just so that people can see us a little bit better. One sec. Um, okay. Sorry about this, guys. Okay, should be just seeing us now. Alrighty. So again, feel free to, for anyone who's just trickled in, we will be recording this, sending out the deck, the recording, everything tomorrow. So you can expect that in your inbox And please drop questions in the chat, as we go. We'd love to hear, especially with Naomi here. She's, technical expert in the Feathr platform and digital marketing, has a lot of insight to share on sort of that side of things. And so if you have questions about, where you should be allocating your budget, how you should be thinking about targeting and segmentation, any of those types of questions are welcome along with anything else you want to ask. So go ahead and just drop questions in the chat throughout and we'll get to them as we can. So yeah, so this is meant to just be kind of a conversation, with the three of us. I have a lot of questions that I want to ask to both Naomi and Caleb. So we'll just be kind of chatting through some of the sort of main topics around how they ran the campaigns, what was successful, what wasn't, how you pivoted along the way, and just hopefully sharing some insights and tactics and like real life strategies that will be helpful for anyone who is thinking about, how to get started with this year's end of year campaigns, or if you have gotten started, ways to level it up, how to use, tech to kind of like pull in the digital side of things. So hoping today is helpful for everyone on here. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. And we will be sharing some specific examples. So I will share my screen along the way a few more times to kind of highlight some real creatives, ads, emails, all of that were used in the campaigns. So first question is for you, Caleb. So kind of thinking about going into last year's end of year fundraising season, what were some of your goals and what made you decide to add digital advertising into the mix? I know you added it a couple of years ago, but how did that sort of change things from how you historically did it? And what were the goals around your end of year fundraising that digital was going to help?
I mean, I think for any nonprofit, the goal is always more donations for end of year. But we had the specific goals to highlight our gift catalog, just because that's, one of the things we do towards the end of the year to bring more awareness to the smaller things that people can donate towards on behalf of other people. And so, previous years before last year, we had done our campaigns before the end of year. So try to offset the kind of like the weak points in our giving schedule. But last year we made the switch to pushing the majority of our efforts into the end of year campaign. And so that was the one goal, to see how that would affect donations.
Yeah.
And it worked. We really doubling down on not just our native efforts of how we sent things out through, email or social media, the general tactics, but also the print versions too. And, once that started getting picked up, people started getting the ads for it and, in the tracked system. And so, yeah, the main goal was just to uh, kind of experiment with our campaign, and just to see if, doing all of the efforts in that end of year season, to see if it would pay out, and it did.
Yeah, I think an exciting part of it too is that last year's campaign was so successful for you that I know you have continued to see like the ripple effects of that months into this year. And so
Mhm.
very exciting.
Yeah.
Um, and Naomi, from your perspective, what was the biggest opportunity that you saw for CRF heading into last year's fundraising end of year season?
Yeah, absolutely. CRF has really beautiful imagery with their, what they've used and their branding, and everything just tells a really cohesive story. They've got lots of different avenues of support. You kind of like get to pick, where you want your donations to go. And so I said, how do we put that in front of a bigger audience, right? So even though they had been with us for years through Feathr, we started a new flight as early as July, getting in front of new audiences, kind of priming brand new people. Cold audiences that were relevant through affinity and geofence campaigns. And so that was really the biggest opportunity, is how do we get this, what they're doing is brilliant, how do we put it in front of more people? Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
awesome. For anyone who doesn't know, could you explain real quick what a flight in Feather is?
Yeah. So one initiative with about 15 campaigns and creatives would be called a flight. And we best practice is to kind of set them all up similarly with a audience expansion. So you're bringing new people, relevant audience into the funnel. And then in the middle, we're engaging those people through techniques like email mapping and traditional emails and retargeting with like a general message. So anyone who comes to your site, let's send them one step further into the funnel with a little bit more urgent messaging. And then bottom of funnel, where we're asking those hard questions, like for the donations, for the support, that sort of thing. So it's really like just a 3-stage traditional marketing funnel in about 15 campaigns. So.
Yeah, I think it's just like a nice visualization too of your campaigns. You're kind of like across the screen seeing where people are entering, what's happening in the middle, and where they're going, where they're converting. And it helps in terms of understanding like how to like analyze the metrics along the way. So you're not going to be seeing as much ROI coming through at that like beginning of funnel or top of funnel phase. And so you can kind of, I think, have realistic expectations, for each phase of that funnel. And it makes it easier to just kind of see how people are moving through it. And it really does, I think, help automate things too, because it's like each individual donor or supporter has their own journey with you, right? And so you can kind of rest assured when you've set everything up that they are seeing the relevant thing for them and they're sort of moving themselves through that funnel or that flight. And so, yeah, it's basically the marketing funnel, but in the form of it's horizontal and we call it a flight, but it's a really nice, I think, visualization of a marketing initiative. So, um, okay, define camp. So somebody just asked if we can define campaign, or is it in the same as in the fundraising world? It's the way that we're defining campaign in Feathr or in a digital marketing platform is slightly different. So I think when we say initiative, that is more like the standard campaign. Would you agree with that, Naomi?
Yeah, a set of an initiative or a flight would be a set of 15 campaigns. Campaigns being like the individual um, piece of the puzzle that we're sending out. So campaign types being, we've got affinity, we've got geofence, we've got search keywords. So each one is has a target and a set of creatives and where we're sending that user to. So
Yeah.
tracking.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I feel this comes up sometimes because it does get a bit confusing. So it's like if you're doing your end of year fundraising campaign as a nonprofit, you run a flight or your initiative in Feathr, we call it project too. And then within that, you have all of these what we call campaigns. So it might be like a geofencing campaign with some ads that you're serving to people in specific areas, coupled with an affinity campaign, like Naomi just said, moving people toward retargeting once they visit your site. You want to follow them with those ads, email campaigns within the larger initiative. So yeah, the language gets a little confusing there, but hopefully that all makes sense. And then yes, in a minute, Robert, I will go into Caleb's actual account in Feathr and we can show off what the overall flight looked like and then dive into some specific campaigns. So, okay, let's see here. So yeah, Caleb, if you want to talk a little bit more about how you think about messaging when it comes to your ads, your emails, and just in general, like the story that you have to tell and how you choose to incorporate that into the messaging that you are putting out into the world.
Yeah, so I mean, the biggest question we always get asked in person or over the phone or online is, well, what's the best way I can help? And so we tried to take that similar question to put it into how you can help as a donor. And so that's kind of how we structured all of our messaging and verbiage. So, in the ads, talking about like we, laid out the what kids get in their $35 a month sponsorship. And but we didn't just say, oh, the kids get this, this, this. It was, no, you provide this, this, and this. So
Mhm.
making it very ownership mentality in an ad world that is driven by how do I benefit in this? We want that's how we wanted to communicate our messaging, and even inside of email campaigns too, focusing on sponsorship letters or goats. That was saying, you provide this. When you sponsor a child, you will receive a child sponsorship letter. Or when you give a goat, it helps a community these ways. And so, yeah, so really just focusing on the donor first. And then once we're able to do that, all of the other messaging is very action oriented, and compelling to get them to jump on board. We wouldn't be who we are, what we do without the donor. And
Yeah.
so it's not this, we never want a donor to feel that they're not a part of our organization. So in our messaging, why would we have that to where they aren't a part of our messaging? And so,
Mhm.
yeah, the overall messaging was to just invite people to be a part of the story today and see that action go forward.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a really good point that, we're inundated with emails and ads, and we're seeing so much advertised to us all the time that we are looking for, like, what is the value in this for me? And so obviously when it's, more commercial, it's like you're looking for, like, do I want to buy this thing or not? Whatever, do I want to pull out my wallet? But it really, the same goes for making a donation. The question is, do I want to pull out my wallet? And I think the more you can make it about them, and like David in the chat, who's also a Feather just said, make the
Mhm.
donor the hero, make them feel seen and appreciated, and that goes a long way. So I think it can really be as simple as like changing, like language in your ads to be less about you as the organization and more about the donor and donor centric language. So Naomi, I'd love to hear your take on that as well, and
Yeah.
just a little more about the messaging strategy behind the campaigns.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that CRF and Caleb do so well is they create a buying atmosphere. I think that a lot of people like to buy, but they don't like to be sold. And so instead, focusing on the good that's happening and the different avenues that you can choose to do so is really powerful. It kind of like puts the power back in as the donor is the hero. And obviously like different types of donations and needs appeal to different types of donors, and so having that like broad offering of what we can do, and then also the give back, right? That for $35 a month you sponsor a child and you get to hear back from that child. Like you are, they've created this circle of impact where you are literally feeling the life-changing gift that you are making at such a small price point per month, right? So feeling in those feel good feelings are really special, and sharing the wealth. So great job on you guys, Caleb. Proud of you for that.
Yeah.
um, and then yeah, what we did with that messaging was within Feather is just we took all those different product offerings that they are donor offerings, what they do, and we crafted them like you mentioned, the gift a goat email. So they have this really neat end of year initiative called the gift catalog, and so you get to pick exactly what you want to your dollars to go towards. And one of those things, and I just thought it was hilarious that gifting a goat was an option. And because at first it didn't click for me, and then even though I'm from a farming area, but then when we were just had a conversation about it, and he was telling me about how integral goats are to their communities. Like they provide milk, they're a social status, they're like the a family with a goat has X amount of, anyway. So there's this the explanation of what a goat means to other people, and then also just the hilarity of being able to gift a goat. So instead of just saying pick anything from the gift catalog in a series of emails, we highlighted different things that they could pick and what that meant for that community, that family individually. And so and obviously used a really cute goat picture. So that's kind of what we did with messaging is um highlighting those things. And Caleb goes out in the field and takes real pictures of these children utilizing the water, utilizing the school resources that they've provided and things like that. And so that connect is so powerful. We're not using stock images in our messaging, in our creatives. We are using real pictures that Caleb took of people that were impacted, children that were impacted by these services. And I think that's really obvious too, that there's a congruence to the story of, this is really what you did for them. And so every year we use a fresh set of pictures. He provides those, and we rebuild ads so that there's not like kind of ad blindness. So we've got this, the branding throughout is really seamless with their font and their colors and everything on their website. So Feather is just an extension of what they're already doing, but with display and with social media and with um, email. So Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I love like pulling out a specific option to give, buying or giving a goat or sponsoring a child. Like when you have a bunch of different things that people can engage with, I do think a really great way to avoid the like banner blindness, inbox fatigue, stuff like that is instead of sending them all the options multiple times, you do kind of highlight one and it'll just visually look different. It's different content. And so, and one thing might resonate with someone more than the next. And so I think it's a great way to like break things up. So if you do have, a gift catalog or something like that at end of year, consider promoting it in that way because I think it gives you a lot more freedom to message more without overwhelming people.
Yeah.
Um,
And then one more note that I wanted to mention on that is, um, serving specific messaging throughout the funnel as well, right? When we're casting that wide net, with audience expansion, where it's very top of funnel, there's no ask, it's learn more, it's an attractive picture and then inviting them to get to know CRF digitally. So that's important too, is just the segmentation, knowing where you're at and what level of familiarity those people have with your org so far. So
Yep, absolutely. So we have a question in the chat that I think is a really good one. It does come up sometimes, and I would like to get your take on it, Naomi. So Chris said we aren't allowed to exploit our kids who come to us for mental health services, so storytelling is tough for us. Any advice on how to make the donor the hero when you can't share the story of how they helped due to HIPAA? This is something we talk about sometimes, and I think like, using stock images in cases like this can be appropriate. But yeah, any advice you have for orgs that are struggling with sensitive issues like this?
yeah, I've got another client, Crisis Services, that um uses stock photos, but of people like in the process of receiving help. So
Mhm.
it's kind of like leaning on the providing the service more so than the critical aspect, right?
Yeah,
So kind of like leading the conversation that way. But yeah, totally understand the HIPAA. Don't put kids for to the forefront. But yeah, I think that there's workarounds, and then people that are willing to share their story, highlighting testimonials there. So when you've got their buy-in, their consent to promote real stories in that way would be important.
Yeah, and it's obviously different when kids are involved, but like for example, we recently did a case study with a client called Guiding Light. And so they are a shelter for men and for women with addiction issues and all kinds of things, and they provide a variety of services to people in the community. And we actually, someone from our team flew there and did a video with them to try to get some footage of, like on the scenes, what they do day to day. And we were able to get permission from some of the people living at the location to feature them. And so when you are working with adults, there are ways to ask if you can do testimonials. And maybe you don't get any yeses, but you might get a couple, and a couple testimonials can go a long way in terms of featuring them on ads and on your website and things like that. So
I thought of another one too. I've got another client that I won't explicitly name, but they're a youth ranch foundation. And so what they did was they used children models, so not the actual users of the services, but they put them at all the different, the beekeeping station and the horse and so all the offerings were real, but it was, children who were, paid essentially to be in those scenarios. So I think that also helped with the congruence of the story without, violating HIPAA. Just an
for
idea.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Okay, let's move on. So I do want to hear a little bit about sort of how you segmented the audience, Naomi, and Caleb. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this as well. Like you know your audience better than anyone. So let's start with you actually. How do you think about, your overall audience of donors and supporters and sort of what buckets you have within that? And then Naomi, if you can talk about how we kind of implemented that in Feathr.
So our main, donor base is people who are religious. So, we have a full spectrum of denominations and backgrounds and unreligious people who want to support of all ages, ranging from, high school kids who are, in youth groups or retired folks who, want to, give their money away. And so trying to balance, okay, who are more likely to be the big time donors or to be regular donors, and who do we want to grow our audience. So we've always had the aspect to try to grow in two different ways. So with trying to bring a younger audience of people, so anybody from in the I think it's like 18 to 25 range, and then retired empty nesters, because as an empty nester, if you're not paying for basketball games or basketball gear, baseball gear, what kids activities, you have a lot more income to give to people in need. And so those were the kind of the two areas we try to focus on in general. And and especially on the younger side, if you are a parent and you have a college kid come back from college, and they're lit up about talking about kids in other countries, and they need care and this, well, a parent's going to pick up on what their child is invested in. And so that gets not just the child in that uh, lane, but it also
Mhm.
gets the parents. So kind of focusing on those two, but specifically our highest connection within Feathr was the um, empty nesters for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, Naomi, can you talk a little bit about how we actually find these people out in the world?
Yeah, yeah. So to explain what an affinity campaign is, we've partnered with our ad vendor to um, have this access to these third-party lists. And we essentially say, okay, Caleb's told me as much as he knows about his audience and who they want to attract more of and stuff. And then I also say, like, okay, what do I know about people that are typically donate to his cause, right? And then where do we want these people? So the specific list, third-party lists that we used were affluent empty nesters, as he mentioned, religious as a demographic, and then donates to religious causes. And so then what we did was we filtered that down to specifically in the United States. I think if you are really localized to one place, like if it's in your name or something like that, then getting more granular, like maybe the counties like that you're in and surrounding you and things like that. But for us, this Christian Relief Fund could really draw donors from all over the US. And so that's what we did. We put a USA geo filter. We said these people that identify as these things, we want to serve them these ads. Learn more about CRF. Just click here, make it really easy, So that was one way that we attracted new audience that did very well. We spend a little bit more money on those top of funnel campaigns because it costs a little bit more to win the click, when they've never heard of you and or seen you online. And so that's okay. We just give it a little bit more budget than retargeting. And again, I mentioned earlier that we start that sooner, right? Because we want them to have time to organically go through the funnel. We want them, they might be served 6 or 7 ads before the first time they click, right? That learn more. And then once they do click, and land on the website, then we can bucket them into retargeting with the general message. So another, just like deepening their understanding, their engagement, not doing a big ask yet, right? And so that's kind of how we use segmentation. But another top of funnel campaign type that was really successful for us this year was we used geofence campaigns. And so what a geofence campaign is, there's two types of them. There's a mobile geofence and a historical geofence. Mobile being, we put into Feathr that there's an event of at least 500 people that we want to see our ads. They're all going to be congregated there together, say in a 1,000-meter radius. And these are the ads we want to serve to those people, right? It's called mobile because it goes to their mobile devices in real time at the event. If you're not in donations, if you're in association, for example, this might be like a competitor event or, somewhere where it's valuable to be in real time. And then they get those ads on their phone. And then, or you could do a historical geofence, which is people that were at this place 1 to 4 months ago. We know that they were there, and so we want to send ads to those cookied users post. And historical geofence typically gets a little bit more engagement because they might see it in real time while they're at the event, but later we're serving it to their mobile devices, their laptops, as they're surfing the web, right? So not as preoccupied. And so what we did, we ran some tests. Like Caleb said, a lot of this was about experimentation. And so I said, hey, where are some places that we could get in front of with your Learn More messaging, just to broaden your audience? And maybe you've connected with these people before. There's some real life conversations have been had, and he did have a list because they're doing the groundwork out there. And so he had a list of mega churches. And so and I'll let you talk about your engagement with them and how you've gotten them involved and stuff. But I said, okay, great. Let's all of those people that were at that event and stuff, let's um, target them. I think we picked like big dates, like during Easter or things, where a lot of the congregation would be there. And then let's geofence the church and send them this like Learn More messaging, but just to bring those people that may or may not have heard of you into your digital audience. And so we had a great amount of engagement. I'll give you numbers on that. Let's see.
Yeah, and also someone asked in the chat, it seems like a lot was spent to raise these funds. What was the total investment versus ROI? I know it sounds like we're listing a lot of spend, but the spend is really low on digital advertising campaigns. They're extremely cost effective. And so, yeah, I actually can go ahead and share the screen now and pull up like the report. Do you think the report for the overall uh,
Yeah.
campaign would be the
Yeah.
right thing to pull
It'll
up?
it'll
Okay.
surprise you.
Yeah, for sure. So let me go here. Um, okay, let me share this screen here. Yeah, just to quell that concern, because I know it sounds like a lot, but that's why digital advertising is actually a lot more cost effective than direct mail and stuff like that. So it can be really helpful to kind of see the numbers. Okay, hopefully everyone can see this. So Naomi, you can talk through this, but this is the flight. I can click in here after and we can look at the campaigns, but here you can see the conversion value of this whole fundraising campaign and then the spend here, which came in under budget. Feel free to add any color to that, Naomi, if you've got any, but or Caleb, obviously when it comes to setting budget, like how do you feel this performed in terms of your expectations versus what happened?
Yeah, just on the budget side, we is probably a lot smaller than it should have been. But with us going into our 30 year, we were still very cautious and concerned. And so we had a pretty low budget comparative to the previous 2 years by a cut. I think 2,000 ad spend less than the last 2 years, and so significantly a lot less. But it paid off to get everybody through that funnel, through the messaging, all of that. And luckily, with how this flight did, our budget increased for this next year, and it's already paying off. So, where we're at, I checked today, where we're at today is where we finished um, in September or mid-October of last year. So we're on a good track to hopefully beat what we did. But budget-wise, I think it's good to do just the minimum of what Feathr recommends. And Naomi can mention what that is,
Mhm.
or as you get more involved with it. But I will say it takes time to let the numbers speak for themselves. It takes time to get vested into spending what needs to be spent. And when you see numbers pay off, it's okay to then put more into it to then hopefully double or triple from previous years.
Mhm. Yeah, and to clarify for the people in the chat, so this spend is actually just the ad spend. So we
Mhm.
allocated $4,486 to the 15 to 20 campaigns that we ran, and then the conversion value. So actually, Feathr attributed campaigns. So, Feathr brought in that user, or Feathr retargeted that user, and they went down the funnel and converted, like from a Feathr campaign, was 134,936. So in full transparency, when I talk, especially to my clients or to their board members about performance, like here, I like to call it return on ad spend rather than return on investment, because this isn't including the cost to use the Feathr license or the cost for me to be your strategist, right? So this is just what the strategy that we input, and just the one flight that we ran for Caleb. You are with software as a service, we highly suggest you to use it on your own as well, self-serve, right? For other initiatives outside of this, and for whatever you might need it for. Feathr is a really broad tool, and you're certainly not limited to the 15 campaigns that your services person might put together for you. But and that stickiness just being, the more you use it, the more likely you're going to continue to use it and renew with Feathr. But yeah, so these numbers are just the ad spend, the dollars spent in the campaigns. And obviously email sends have $0 associated with them, or at least in the Feathr platform they do. I know certain other platforms cost money per send and things, but we don't. And so yeah, so these are just amazing results. And as Caleb mentioned, this was a multi-year process. Year one was throwing everything out and sticking it, seeing what stuck to the wall. Year two was finessing that, like what worked best, what ads performed best, what timing performed best, what audiences performed best. And then year three, where we had this, magnificent growth, was really just a dialing in of all those things. And we are still seeing the residual donations from last year, even though it's not peak season at all. And somebody asked, when did you run these? We ran these from July of 2024 until March. And originally we were just going to shut things off in January. And I was like, Caleb, I was like, people are still donating hand over foot. We've got
Don't turn it off.
yeah, I was like, your end of year campaigns are done, but a lot of your messaging is evergreen. A lot of your initiatives are evergreen. I said, let's just stretch this until the end of your license. And we did. And it was, it had great results. So, and then again, like he said, he gave us more money this year, and we're already performing really, really well, as we are still gearing up and priming our audience for those end of year asks. So.
Yeah, I think having the like year round staying in front of people, like that is the goal, right? And so obviously you're going to have moments in the year where you're running ads specifically about your gift catalog or holiday related things. But the idea is to just be staying in front of existing supporters and getting in front of new people. So, you probably got in front of lots of new people last year who didn't necessarily give, but now they know about your organization and you've stayed on their radar all throughout this year. And now they're more primed to give this giving season if they haven't already given, during the year. And so I feel like the goal really with digital marketing is to just be staying in front of people on as many channels where they are as possible, and just keep, stay on their radar. And with compelling messaging, obviously, and trying to speak to individual segments as much as you can, but really and like Naomi just said, if some of the content that you're running at end of year is evergreen, you could keep those running, later into the next year. And so a lot of the stuff is going to be more targeted and specific around holidays, but you might be running some general awareness campaigns around the holidays too, and you can keep those going. So,
Yeah.
lots you can do there.
And on that note too, I just wanted to mention that one thing that we do is from our retargeting, we'll exclude donors who've already donated in the last 30 days per se, right? So that they feel like we received their donation, we appreciated it. We're not asking them right after they just donated, right? So we kind of do like a cool off period for our donors, and that number, that date range will be totally specific to your donor audience, how often they donate and things like that. But for ours, I think it was 30 days that we didn't ask again,
Yeah,
so
that's key to be able to
Yeah,
exclude specific groups.
and I to jump in real quick, somebody asked if this was digital advertising only. To even go off of what Naomi said, once somebody donated, they were in our track in our native marketing and donor relations. So we were, even if they did donate, they were still then getting our personal emails, our personal contact. which then even, increased their other donations um, just from seeing our native stuff. So it was very paired together, using Feathr to get everybody to us, and then us being able to then continue that relationship in further donations through, email, social media, newsletters, print. We sent out our print news end of year campaign, gift catalog, and digital. So, it kind of works in tandem together to, in a partnership
Yeah.
of growth.
Absolutely. And on that note too, this is really exciting. These numbers that you're seeing, as exciting as they are actually a bit conservative because there's some residual gifting opportunities. So when someone signs up for a child sponsorship, they can do it monthly or quarterly, right? That would be billed monthly or quarterly. Well, we're not pulling those numbers back into Feathr. Like
Mhm.
we're just like all of these numbers here are that initial donation, that initial sign up for sponsorship. So there's some more donation that is happening, like he said, from the native side, which I think it's so valuable that you don't just drop donors. It's not just what Feathr's doing. It's, then including those people in your community and then serving them other messages. So
For sure. Yeah, and I
Mhm.
think it's important to remember like the multi-channel marketing approach means that somebody might see a direct mailer from you, not donate, and then start seeing some ads. Like you want to be reaching people in as many ways as possible. And so the ad might be the trigger for them making a donation or vice versa. You might first get on their radar because you geofence an event that they were at or a church that they were attending. And then, they convert for some other reason down the line, but just as many touch points in as many places as possible is the goal. I want to
Mhm.
quickly run through and give like quick answers to some of these questions just because we've gotten a lot of questions, which is wonderful. How do you find a list of participants at a competitor's event? So you're not actually finding the list of participants, you are geofencing the event. So you're serving ads to people within a specific physical geographic location. So if there's a competitor event happening or one that happened in the past, you basically draw a little digital fence around it and you're serving ads to people who are or were at that event. So you don't have their personal information or their email or anything like that. It's not a contact list, but you're able to serve them those display ads on their mobile devices where they would normally be seeing all kinds of ads, retail ads, all of that as they're browsing the web. They're seeing your cause now because they attended that event. So hopefully that answers that question. And then just in terms of the numbers you are seeing here, these numbers, like we've said, are just related to these campaigns. So there were funds brought in outside of this, and then the direct mail efforts and things like that that aren't tracked in here, which you actually can track those in Feathr as well. But there were tons of efforts outside of this that helped just complement the efforts in the digital marketing bucket here. But these numbers are directly tied to these campaigns. And then we got a couple people asking if the targeted like affinity lists, third-party lists are an additional cost. And no, those are included as a campaign type in Feathr. So once you have a Feathr license, you have full access to affinity targeting and all of the lists that come with that. So that is not a separate expense. Um, cool. And then, yeah, a question for you, Caleb. We have a couple more questions to get through, but I would
Mhm.
rather answer the questions that are in the chat because we're coming up on time here. So, Caleb, a question from Josh. How do you view Feathr as part of your donor acquisition goals? What kind of growth has your donor program seen overall with Feathr being activated and used in this way?
Yeah, so we use Feathr as, in essence, as our fish net. So, it's just because it's getting the people that may not hear us in person or at the places we go or the people we interact with day to day. So it's kind of like um, we're going to send it out. And if people, you know, like what they see, they, agree with our messaging, that's the people we want to work with us. And then within that, once they're in our system, or if it is at a church or organization that we've geofenced, more than likely, if they're new to that event or that building, they know somebody there. And so if they get an ad in that moment, they can then say, "Hey, what is this organization?" Well, somebody who's been at that church or at that event before that we have been to, they can say, "Oh yeah, that's Christian Really Fun. They do this, this, this. They provide water. It helps with that engagement for people who are new." And so it's definitely that, especially early, it's that shotgun effect of just see where you can get as many leads as possible. And then once they go through that funnel, well, the farther they go in that funnel, the more they are in our acquisition. So, and then in tandem with, all the events we go to or churches we go to then, we usually geofence every location we go to, if they're big enough to warrant it. And so that kind of works in tandem together.
Yeah, thank you for that. Um, While I'm sharing the screen, I would love to just dive into the flight itself, just so people can kind of get a sense of this. And I would love to just show off a few of the creatives that were used in these campaign or in this overall fundraising campaign. So I know we wanted to look at, let's see. Okay, so this is the goat email. Can you guys see the email?
Mhm.
Okay, cool. I just want to make sure. Yeah, so do you guys want to talk through? I know we've talked a little bit about the, buying a goat or gifting a goat, but yeah, just talk through a little bit about the imagery and featuring this in the email and how it performed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
go ahead, Caleb.
I can jump in. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, goats are very vital for people in um, countries across the world. So, for example, like we have a feeding program in Kenya for our breeding program in Kenya for goats. It started off with 2 goats, and now we have that farm over 100, and we're able to give that away to people in communities um, for them to be able to make a living so they can sell the milk, they can have the milk for their family, they can continue to grow their flock, so then they can either sell the hair or the skin, or sell it for meat. It's a whole livelihood for them. And so it's something that we wanted to highlight and share, um, for people to know that, a, a simple thing like a goat for $50 changes not just one life, it changes communities, from drought, from famine, from a sense of despair. And so we want to give hope through a goat.
Awesome. Yeah, and great question from Michelle. Welcome to Feather. Glad you're going through onboarding, but yeah, having I think realistic expectations around that first year, even the second year, but expecting to really grow as you sort of hone your audience and get more data in Feather. So great question there. Um, Naomi, do you want to point me to which email that was, just so we can actually look, or actually, you know what, let's look at the ad campaign that we wanted to highlight, just to show some ads too. Do you remember which one it was? If not, I can go into the chat and pull it up. One of the
Yeah,
retargeting
so
campaigns.
yeah, we wanted to talk about our highest click-through rate, the retargeting donation match promo.
Okay, here.
Yep.
Cool.
So this one had a 0.81% click-through rate. That's one of our highest engagements. And so I think part of it is, I mean, if you aren't doing a match, figure out how to do one.
Mhm.
Who doesn't want to double their money? There's a million things that a donation match are great for. It's
Mhm.
making the donor feel like they're involved in this mission and this initiative. There's a sense of urgency to it. Why donate now? You can also, highlight what it's going towards. Specific matches are often money for a specific project, that sort of thing. And then also, just using attractive imagery and stuff, double your money messaging, short and sweet value proposition. So if you want to scroll down, and we'll show them exactly what ads we used there.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can help us double our impact. Donate today. Your donations to our water fund and where needed most. So again, using the exact same terminology of what these initiatives are called on their webpage, so that like from the Feathr ad to their website to the page where they pick where they want to support them is all very congruent in messaging and verbiage. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Really
and then
cool.
you'll be matched up to $200,000 per fund. So that's significant. It's a big goal, for sure. Like that's why your help is needed. But also just imagining the impact of doubling our money up to $200,000 is huge. So
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
And we
Um, I,
double tap matches. Like we send an email out promoting the match. We resend that email. A little tip that I like to do is I like to 2 weeks after we've sent an initial email, I like to send it again just to the non-opens from the first one. So anyone who didn't see the message, and we tweak the subject line so it doesn't go into the same thread. It'll come up back into their inboxes. And that way you can get two sends out of one email template, out of one creative, right? And we often see people donate on that second time, don't we, Caleb? We see it's been a
Yeah.
valuable use and it's so easy to do. You just clone the email, adjust the subject line. Um,
Mhm.
we haven't said this yet, but I do want to brag on Caleb. Caleb is a star um, client to work with because he's so responsive. He's so responsive with email lists, with creative approvals, with any changes that are having on their end, so that there's like transparency and we can make those changes within Feathr. And so if you are a services client, having that communication back and forth so that we can do things for you in almost real time is so valuable. And so we work with their internal schedule so that we're not oversaturating their audience with messaging. So I say like in 2 weeks we'll resend this to the non-opens, but make sure that this date works for you all. You're not sending another ask that date kind of thing. And so timing is really important. But yeah.
Real quick before, because we are coming up on time and I know people are going to start to have to hop off, I want to launch another quick poll to see who's interested in learning a little bit more about Feathr. So if you are interested in learning more about what you've seen here today, interested in potentially launching some of these campaigns yourself, go ahead and drop a yes in the chat and we'll get in touch with you. And you'll be able to talk to somebody who can really customize the conversation around your organization's needs, what your goals are coming up on end of year, next year, all of that. So we'd love to chat with you and just kind of show you what's possible for your organization. And for anyone who is familiar with Feathr and you're not a client yet or not on board, we recently changed our pricing model. So you can check that out on our website. We've made it more accessible for organizations of all sizes. So we want to put this tech out there and make it as easy to use and as accessible to all of these amazing organizations that are doing good work. So we've got new pricing that hopefully will be good for you and work with your budget. But yeah, go ahead and seeing lots of yeses. So great. We'll reach out and get in touch with you and provide some more information. But yeah, I also wanted to just comment on the gift matching thing. I've seen some really cool stuff. One of our clients has on their website, if you want to sign up to be a monthly giver instead of a one-time giver, they match that. So it's like, okay, get your gift matched by becoming a monthly giver. And so each month, that is actually matched, which I think can be really impactful for driving that recurring giving, which, as we know, does drive more donations over time. And then I think recently I was chatting with another org that told me that, you might have a major donor that is like, okay, I'll give up or I'll match up to 100,000 or 200,000. So you have that number, but you can kind of choose what you want to do with that, right? So you can decide, I want to use 50,000 of that in this one campaign and say, match up to 50,000. And then you have leftover that you could use in another campaign. So if you decide like gift matching is really impactful for the results we get and the amounts that people are willing to give, let's spread that love like over multiple campaigns and use it in the creative and use it in the language. So that's another way to think about it as well. And yeah, I think just like it can feel like difficult. I think a lot of gift matching campaigns tend to seem like they're like corporate, sponsorships or corporate partnerships and stuff like that. But if you do have those major donors who are giving a lot each year, you could propose this to them as an alternative where they still want to give a lot and this is still an opportunity for them to do it, but them giving that amount can actually drive other people to give way more too. So I think
Mhm.
major donors as an avenue for gift matching can be pretty accessible. So cool. And then let's see. I feel like we've shared a good amount on metrics and stuff. I think there was one question. Let me just make sure we either covered it or maybe we can quickly talk through. So, talking about the fundraising budget that drove this campaign last year, how did you make decisions about where to or what to spend and where, and what metrics did you consider in designing the size of these campaigns? So I guess, I think we already kind of talked about the budget you'd set aside and expected results. Any more sort of like insights or comments from either of you on budget, or like for an organization that maybe doesn't have a lot of money to work with but wants to get started with some campaigns, like what would you recommend in terms of budget allocation?
I think it's just really dependent on what your goals are. You know, if you need to get your message in front of more people, then lean heavily on the awareness campaigns, on the audience expansion campaigns in the beginning, and pull the sooner that you pull people into this digital journey, the better, right? If you know that you already have a good amount of audience, on your website, web traffic, things like that, but you're having trouble engaging them, then that's where I'd say, run some slim audience engagement campaigns, but put the majority of your budget towards retargeting, right? Wherever they are, say like, users that are coming to your homepage, putting just increased urgency asks to pull them down the funnel until they convert. So yeah, did that answer it?
Great stuff.
Yeah.
I also realized someone asked if you can do Google Ad Grants. I'm trying to find the question. Can you use Google Ad Grant for this? So the answer, yeah, yeah, you can run your Google Ad Grant in Feathr as well. So we didn't really cover that here, but a lot of organizations that use Feathr run their Google Ad Grants in the platform. Just helps to kind of have everything in one place, be able to see the results sort of in the same language, and compare campaign by campaign and see what's working. So yeah, you can do that in Feathr as well. Um, cool. Well, we are 1 minute over time, but any parting thoughts? Caleb, what would you say to another similar organization? I know you just put your email in the chat, so thank you
Yeah.
for that. I know that you're happy to, chat with people who are considering digital marketing, have questions about it, but yeah, any thing you want to share for a similar organization looking to do this?
Yeah, I think really just find where you want to grow and go for it. This was one area we wanted to grow in and expand our reach in the digital space, and we just went for it. I think trusting what Feathr is doing, or other people on your team to know what to do. That's a big thing because I don't come from a background of digital advertising. I come from a background of creative or marketing strategy, and so working with Naomi and the others at Feathr to do help with this process is great because we are from we're on a small team, or I'm on a small team. I couldn't do this by myself. I If we tried to pay somebody to do this on our team, we wouldn't have the capacity to do all the ad spend, or put resources to these campaigns. And so the group at Feathr, you guys are more valuable
Mhm.
than and so it's great to work with you guys. Yeah, I could talk a lot about how grateful I am for Feathr. But it's the other thing is just to trust the process. It takes time, it takes effort to go through the funnels, the emails. It for us, it didn't happen in our first year. It happened in our third year. So it took time for me to convince our board, our executive director and president to be patient with it, to just to let it develop. And then this last year, we got, like I mentioned earlier, our funding for this went up because we saw the results of what we were working towards. And so, that's what I encourage for anybody on here who's a little hesitant about it, or, kind of not really sure about what Feathr does. But trust me, it is worth it to have in your toolbox of marketing.
Great. And Naomi, any parting thoughts from you? Anything that you hope that attendees take away today or could get started with?
No, it's been great. Yeah, this is the part that feels real good. So come join us, become Feathr.
Yes, absolutely. Cool. Well, again, you'll get the recording and the deck tomorrow, so look at your inbox for that in the morning. And thank you guys both so much, Caleb and Naomi, for joining. It was super valuable to have both of your voices in the room. So thank you so much. And thanks for everyone who joined today. Hope this was really helpful, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.